Hello. Hello. Currently looking at sea ice that is South Georgian Islands, south of the South Shetland Islands. This right here. Here's Argentina. Here's Chile. Here are the Falkland Islands, South Georgian Islands, South Shetland Islands, and then you have all this down here. We'll be looking at sea ice extent here. It is only a few scans that I have, but I feel this is important. What we're looking at here, sea ice extent. See a crack right here. This all here. This is all mashed up sea ice. It's constantly bumping together. That's separating. That's getting smaller and smaller because each time they crack into each other, it's the risk of iceberg becoming two icebergs, so on and so forth and so forth. It's a lot of wave action, a lot of weight on top of the water displacement that's constantly floating around, bumping into each other. And then you have this. You have just what was I had it zoomed in a little too far so you couldn't see the date. You see some large icebergs here, 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 here. And that's what happens when this all comes out, breaks apart. Just like I will show you which play. There's first up here. Zoom in a little better. Now, since we already have an idea of what this looks like from far up, this is the sea ice extent of and around the Antarctic. It's all doing this. Let's see, climatereanalyzer.org, and be able to look at the sea ice concentration year to date. Again, this is the same area right here that we're looking at in this image. It's the rapid decline of sea ice, fresh water that's stored in these giant island-sized clumps of ice that are smashed together. Antarctica isn't just this giant continent that's frozen. It's made up of a lot of different pieces of land. And the more that the ice thaws, the more at risk of the southern hemisphere can become to flooding and prone of heavy precipitation that is alien to them. So here, months of rain in a few short hours is due to more precipitation, more cycling, and the water to rain cycle being interrupted in so many different areas causes alarming droughts, causes alarming decay of plant matter. Which releases more carbon. Turn this back on. More importantly, this area right here is one of the most significant because it's pretty important to note just how it looks after sea ice extends. It's completely gone. There. Some sea ice, but it's a rapid decline of sea ice. Antarctica is the largest fresh body water stored. There is doomsday seed vaults in Antarctica. There are treaty only for scientific purposes. They're traveling. It's not for exploiting the resources. We have the area just south of what we're looking at here that cleaned out. There's another area, because once it cracks and the water starts to rush in as displacement starts to lift, you see these giant icebergs get pulled out to sea eventually. The one that we've been following, A23A, is so far up there it's getting difficult to get shots of it now. It's pretty alarming. All of it's alarming. It's supposed to be alarming. All we feel we can do is watch as people that make decisions, of billionaires that just do not want to cut their bottom line, even that is like killing 90% of the planet. Okay. See here, this is the region just south, connected by sea ice. Look for different kind of cracks, puckering, indentations, dents. Starts to break up here. It gets carried away too. And eventually melts and becomes more water, more fresh water in a sea. It's very, very dramatic. It gets taken out to sea. This is stunning losses of sea ice in an ecosystem that's entirely made up of sea ice. So dramatic. Let's see, I have another scan to show. This is of iceberg A23A. Let's pump the brakes. This is off of the South Georgian Islands. Doom Glacier, Doom Iceberg, sorry, comes into focus and twirling, spinning, rotating. This is the iceberg A23A. Very highly reflective, but it's not an entirely flat surface on the top. Hills and ridges, and melts, canals, and channels that are all made due to water melting on the surface that essentially acts as a saw blade going through it. It doesn't need to have a complete spin, you know, it just needs to have something like working its way in there. Don't see looks like there is some fracturing. So, very reflective surface, meaning it's absorbing sunlight, meaning it's increasingly melting. It is heading into the Scotia Sea, where it can go into the South Atlantic if it makes it. There's a lot of islands that this thing could really actually slam into, since it's, you know, larger than some of those islands. It's 80 kilometers or some 50 miles wide. It is massive. Rotating furiously. It's making a lot of rotations. This thing is rotating greatly. It looks to have just full reign of the sea, nothing impeding its path, and it's 80 kilometers wide of freshwater melt. One more. This is by far the strangest one, because right here is Mount Erebus. Pretty active volcano when it comes to Antarctica, but alarming. Is the sea ice surrounding it gone? Where'd it go? It melted. Let's go here. You can see the date up here, the first. This is where the sea ice right now extent reaches across from. Which playing? Pulled out to sea. Nothing's left of any of those icebergs that we were just looking at, that were just here a moment ago. It's got pulled out by the currents that are always drawing, but there's nothing left. And then it's just gone. It's rapidly deteriorating because July was the hottest month on record, become the hottest northern hemisphere on record, become the hottest oceans and seas on record, became the hottest northern ice on record, and then the axis tilted, and then we got the hottest southern hemisphere on record, the most bleaching on record, ocean bleaching on record, and right now the hottest Antarctica. Because the amount of sea ice right now is gone. Like, I can't even say that it's there. Does this mean that there's going to be sea level rise? Yes. Can't you? Either the water will swirl in the sea, or it will become precipitation that just keep raining in areas for hours or days or months of rain in a single sitting. It's a lot. Right now, you know, the southern hemisphere is like Australia, Venezuela, Colombia are dealing with wildfires too. So even though that climate change is that an ecosystem that has such a drastic change won't be able to adapt to it before it destroys it completely. A forest isn't going to become better at protecting itself against fires. They can have more resilient bark. They can have deeper water membrane channels, and longer roots. It doesn't. This picture is probably the most absurd one so far that I've seen. You just see the sea ice here. and it's gone. It's a massive amount of sea ice that's missing. But you can only measure it by being an analogy to another country, like Argentina, or a European country, take Italy, something familiar to people's eyes, and say, we just lost the size of Italy, we just lost the size of Argentina when it comes to sea ice. This is damning. And this is just within the last month. It is an escalation that I wouldn't like to see. It is an escalation of sea ice decline, and eventually might work on that out. These are live satellite images. These stress fractures as eventually starts pushing forward because its mass is lessening because of the amount of sea ice that is deteriorating. It's all water, open water. Looks pretty good and smashed up. Just there a moment ago. I apologize for the wait. Weird. There it goes. So piece gets getting carried away right there. So you see how these look before they become little shards of icebergs running all over the place. Is that eventually the cracks get to be too much and they just explode pretty much. And you have a cemetery of icebergs. It's harder to see the snow extent on the land of Antarctica, but we can see clearly the sea ice extent is pretty much gone, obliterated. It is not normal for any time of year. See an alarming, distressing amount of sea ice. And all we can do is watch. The people that are delusional and thinking that problems will take care of itself, or the fact that there's probably not a beach so far around the world, even the most coveted, that haven't had a serious spill, serious hazard of either chemicals or plastic, just destroying everything. Now with ships having to redirect and go south Africa, going to add a lot of the displacement of water around that continent, but coupled with the sea ice melt, sea level rise, that is going to become a perilous journey to take. So no matter what we do, we're screwed. Because we couldn't even get people to agree on the pandemic. We're gonna have to get people to agree on global trade and freight, and there's planes and ships that are larger than some cities that I grew up in. Oh, thank you. Love you. Ah! A hot fry. This ice right here. This can't be. One thing that can't be blamed is civilian population. Because it's going to be just specific billionaires or just airliners, just in general, bus terminals, bus stations, you know, just. It's a lot of diesel, a lot of fuel, and it's a lot per hour. And these buses, these vehicles, these like, county trucks and stuff, they don't stop running. They don't stop running, and they'll have huge gas tanks. And they don't stop running because A, the people working in these trucks are cold because outside is probably winter or it's night and it's raining. It always keeps these things on. They're like little running apartments, little running hotels even for people that work in them. How do we stop jobs? Mm-hmm. How do we stop progress? How do we stop new cutting edge technology because it's leaving a type of new byproduct that we're not capable of disposing properly? A lot. And it all goes in landfill, and it's supposedly sealed from the bottom up. But landfills, most famously last few years, like there's a landfill in Michigan that famously lost a vote on increasing its budgeting so it can increase its amount of landfilling, and it lost. And that landfill has less than 20 years left of filling. It's a lot of hazardous work because you're dealing with a lot of gear that's always going to be breaking down because it's always being used. Just like the county trucks, always being used, and it's always gas, and it's always being run. So people that get mad about a gas-powered lawnmower, I can understand that, but it's small fries. To be able to change that, you have to change from the top down. Doing it from the bottom up hasn't really worked because the people that are doing the massive amount of polluting aren't your neighbors, aren't my neighbors, I mean, I've seen some crazy things my neighbor has done before. Once as I was saying, see my neighbor do some pretty crazy things. He had a wasp nest or a bee's nest, I can't remember what, that was hanging from one of the trees that he would walk by. So what did he do? He went to his garage, he got gasoline, jerry rig of gasoline, opened up the side and kind of sprayed or splashed the bees with this gasoline, and then he lit something and threw it, and it exploded. Do we see people between 10 and 20 years old like doing horrific things to pets and animals? I remember when I was very young, taking out the trash, pulled up the trash can. Okay. There's a trash bag, sit next to it. I pick up the trash bag, and there's two big crickets, big black crickets. And I drop the bag. Because I'm like, I just dropped it directly on them. They were just under it, right? No, nothing like that. So when I picked the bag up again, one of the crickets was clearly crushed, and the other cricket started jumping my leg in furious attempt to get justice. And I learned that the impossibility and the scale at which you're trying to enact justice is beyond comprehension. That cricket could not comprehend me. That cricket only knew that it saw me, and then its mate crushed next to it. That hurt me a lot as a kid, having just witnessed, like, these two crickets in their lives. And in a moment, I crushed one, and the other one blamed me. It wasn't, I wonder if this cricket meant it. No, this cricket meant it. I watched crickets for years. I used to breed them. I switched over to dubé roaches instead. Mainly because of the noise. The crickets can get very, very, very obnoxious. And they're so small that the leopard gecko, when she'd bite a cricket, she would need a lot of crickets to fill her up. Now she only needs one dubé roach. They're really easy to maintain. They don't climb, they don't make noise, they don't scream or shriek or do that kind of a long air escape, like they have wings but they don't fly. They have barbed legs but they can't climb walls and stuff. It's like they were bred for this purpose. Or bred out. They bred out the things that people usually would hate about a roach. And I could see them taking droplets of water on their back, on their wings, and dispersing it to all the little roaches, because they give live birth to about 35 when the temperature's right. I put some broccoli in the cage, and these little tiny babies just came out of nowhere and just started chipping away at the broccoli stalks. Just, there's always another way to utilize leftovers than feeding it to the dog. You can raise beetles. You can raise bugs. They'll eat everything. I don't feed them chicken or anything like that, but they can live off that broccoli or asparagus, something, whatever I would give them for a while. And then I wait about 24 hours or so, and she can have a feast. Because one of these roaches is going to fill her up to the point that she's not going to want another one anytime soon. Because these are huge. I stay with her and make sure she swallows, make sure she eats, animals like this are sensitive to climate change. We have quite a few animals that are very susceptible to climate change. We have a chinchilla. These are native to the Andes Mountains, South America, where currently Colombia is experiencing massive wildfires and they don't have the fire departments, the fire technology, put out these massive mountain engulfing flames. These also were hunted almost to extinction because of their fur. Look at that fur. The average human has 1 to 3 hairs per follicle. These have 50. They feel everything. They map out your face. They remember you without even knowing it. And they hear everything. And they need constantly dust baths, constant dust baths. It's a lot of animals we have here that this is a hedgehog. This is our hedgehog. Very susceptible to climate change, very, very fragile species. What happens when it gets cold? They take a nap and they don't wake up because they hibernate. But it's not time to hibernate and they're not ready to hibernate, so they die during these hibernation. Like all over the UK and Europe, you start getting more colder weather on average. These things, they have a hard upbringing. As soon as the milk is gone, the mother abandons the child, the babies. But even though they're hardy, very fragile because of flooding, of just chill of cold, and these things can't hibernate all year long. So you see, climate change already has adverse effects on what we know as life as we know it. This is a pygmy African hedgehog. Or is it African pygmy hedgehog? Either way, she is adorable. I don't recommend getting a male because they constantly are violating themselves. Well, the worst she does is she runs on her wheel and defecates all over it and keeps spinning to the point that she's covered in her own filth. And I have to give her a shower, which she loves. Hedgehogs love water. These are Dubé roaches. This is them generously taking stalks of all these broccoli. You can see head so well camouflaged by carapace. That's the head right here. That's the jaws, eating it. And that's a leg right there. Oh, sorry, I thought I turned off my camera while I was eating. With those tiny wings for the female compared to the males and male wings. Both non-functional, they don't fly. If they flew, they'd be careful. The thing about crickets, though, is they are deceptively strong. I had a plastic container, and it had some slits on the top for air, and they could jump up there, like they can bounce up so high and put their feet in between and pry themselves through, and then they would get loose, and then it would be quite a journey. These are just some of the examples. We think that, you know, roaches are the hardiest, but there's a lot of different species of cockroach. This is just one of them. It is a very beneficial because they're not difficult to maintain. While I found crickets would lay eggs all day, all night, and they would constantly grind their gears, just being very loud. But it was the quickness that they populated that it was hard to maintain. Similar to whenever I was breeding and raising mealworms, and I would let them grow up into beetles, and those beetle forms, they can live up to 3 years. So I used to have a beetle farm, but it just got away from me. It's just like, it's easier to grow these roaches to the point where they're edible to her, because once they get to a big size, they're too big for her, she can't eat them. So I separate a lot of these roaches, and then they only give live birth to about 35 when it's 90 degrees. It's something I need to take my microscope to. I have a handheld 1000 time microscope that I really need to check them out. I think looking at their face might be cool. But right now we're looking at climate change. We're looking at ice. This giant piece of ice here is 80 kilometers wide. Massive. You can see here another graveyard of icebergs. Many. That's the last piece of sea ice here. And gone. Gone. All the sea ice cracked and gone, receding to the point it's starting to affect these shelves. Whoa. Take a look at this. Apologies, my camera's cutting in and out. Sometimes does that, so it doesn't look. Yep. Yep. There was sea ice there before. Right here. Sea ice. Receding. Receding. Gone. Looks like a lot of sea ice right here. Let's take a look. You can see it breaking off to here, to the right. Shattering. Receding. Still sea ice here. Alarming amount of icebergs that are broken free. Looks like a lot of breakup here. Oh yeah. right there at the top. Starts up here. Break up. And leave. No more sea ice over here on the east side in this connecting this here on the east side, and the top side is starting up there too. Where's the sea ice? This is gone now. This looks like candidate. Oh. It's all melting, dissolving, from bottom up. Still locked in place. Whoa. I'm up a little bit. North side of these images looks like a lot of Whoa. No. No. That is absolutely massive. Hey, this is a first for me. Is that confirmation that sea ice all around Antarctica, below the line of Antarctic, the ice is rapidly deteriorating to the point that it is not allowing the refreeze and catch up. This is insane. You see it just breaking up. Massive, huge amounts of ice that is being moved, rotating out, getting pulled out due to the currents, winds, prevailing winds, anything. Really, it's gonna just slide into each other and crack, break, and shatter, which will allow it to melt faster because it's in pieces. That is an alarming. See if I can get closer. It's scary. And it's okay because the scale of which we're talking about here, this ice breaking, you would need to measure it in countries. Like, how many Argentinas did we lose this month? How many Italys did we lose this month? Like, lose sea ice extent the size of Uganda. These are troubling amounts because we don't know how thick this ice is and was, and it cracking, how devastating it might have been, especially for the local ecology, especially for penguin populations. Broken, gets lifted up. This is the calamity of sea ice. This this is happening now. This isn't happening 20 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now. This is happening right now. It's irrefutable that we are looking at a massive, rapid decline of sea ice of and around the Antarctic circle, of and around Antarctica. It is very troubling to see these images, to see the health and state of Antarctica as we go around it. And It looks like somebody took sledgehammers to this ice, but we're looking at it in the miles. This ice is breaking apart, and this is going to affect Antarctica greater than any other time. It looks to be completely all around Antarctica. The entire continent is melting. We first started noticing dramatic changes, I believe, in July. The hottest months on record become the hottest seas on record, the hottest oceans on record, and that transfers into the warmest ice on record. Now it's the southern hemisphere's turn, but this if I didn't tell you that you were looking at Antarctica, it would probably be difficult to guess. Because where is all the sea ice? It's all gone. Is there a time limit for this? We see flooding in South America and South Africa. The result of this? I don't know. Just know that it is gone. Gone and carried away. So much ice. I grew up in Detroit, and one of my earliest memories is going into Patton Park woods and stumbling upon a bullfrog that I tried to catch. Not thinking, not just like, oh, it's a bullfrog, go to get it. I gotta get it. I wasn't gonna keep it. But to think that I could have captured it without harming myself and getting stuck in the reeds or something, it's funny. But those memories like that, like, I wouldn't want children playing in a river. Wouldn't want kids swimming in the river, creek, whatever you would call them. Because it's all toxic, it's all polluted. Jobs that I've worked for steel plants, machine shops, county roads, it's I see a lot of not just shortcuts, but a lot of waste and a lot of environmental hazards that are pretty much free. All gone. There's no timetable to this since it happens so rapidly. Water mixes, water takes time. Water is different temperature, takes time. But don't know how much more of Push play. That's a permanent fixture right here. Where is all the sea ice? It's, you see continental shelves and parts of Antarctica, but you don't see any of the ice. Should be rolling in it. There is the latest image, A23A. Massive 80-kilometer iceberg that's on its way into the Scotia Sea. We'll see where it spins up into next.
.com.
the South Georgian Islands. There's some icebergs that are looking to... These icebergs are nothing. These are nothing icebergs. They used to be something. They melted. We see these islands. Montague Island. Bristol Island. Cook Island and Foulet Island and Bellingshausen Island. I thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please like, stream, and subscribe to the channel. Helps me out immensely. Currently, we're looking at sea ice conditions of and around Antarctica. Sea ice is depleted. See what next scans, but right now this is looking real bad. Thank you for got some unfortunate news that my very good friend had to their dog to sleep. My best friend. Tragic. It was a great dog. Little tiny bear. That is sad. I will in the stream here is we looked all around Antarctica. Take care.